From forgotten military bases to desert ghost towns, these are 10 strange abandoned locations. Number 10. Insterburg Castle, Russia. This abandoned castle has a long and rich history. In 1275, the Baltic Prussians occupying the land were attacked by the Teutonic Knights. The aggression lasted for decades. By 1311, the Knights had finally set up camp in the area, and by 1337, they controlled enough land to build this castle. For centuries, the castle was a stronghold for the Teutonic state, helping them raid Lithuania, among other places. Let's fast forward to 1812, when none other than Napoleon Bonaparte passed through the castle, which at this point was more of a military base than anything else. Nowadays, the castle still stands strong, with some parts missing. I would consider it in great shape when you realize how much has happened around it. There is conflicting reports, but it is believed that a lonely, eccentric artist is the only occupant of the castle. Oh yeah, they also have medieval fencing matches in the summer. Number 9. Peenemunde Army Research Center, Germany. Shout out to Fabian, who was interested in more abandoned places in Germany. I have featured some in my previous videos, but this one slipped under the radar. Founded in 1937, this Army Research Center is most famous for developing the V-2, the first ever guided ballistic missile. Not surprisingly, the V-2 was also the first man-made object to travel into space. And yes, the V-2 rocket was also used in the Second World War. This is a picture showing the extensive damage of a V-2 strike in London. Nowadays, the research center is almost completely destroyed. Only a few of the original facilities remain. And for the most part, it's not a popular destination to visit. Number 8. Rolava Tin Mine, Czech Republic. Another remnant of the war is the isolated Rolava Tin Mine. Built in the span of only 8 months in 1941, the mine had one purpose: supply tin for the war effort. It was not a pretty sight by any means. Even though the mine was state-of-the-art, the people that built it and worked in it were Soviet and French prisoners of war. Interestingly enough, they were treated as volunteers and were even paid sometimes. That plan did not work for a long time. By 1943, most of the workers were of German origin, and after the war, the mine was filled up. Any equipment that could be moved was taken by the USSR, and as the years passed, locals took whatever else they could utilize. Number 7. Monbello Psychiatric Hospital, Italy. Built in 1879, this giant hospital complex was responsible for thousands of patients. At its peak, the hospital housed over 3,000 people. Perhaps the most famous psychiatrist that worked there was Ugo Sarletti, where he tried to find a cure for epilepsy. Ultimately, Carletti was responsible for the advent of the electroshock therapy, which is not the best thing to be associated with. The complex stayed open until 1999, with some of the buildings operating until 2008. From what I have read about this psychiatric hospital, it was actually quite beautiful and relaxing to stay at. Its main focus was on the patient's relationship with nature, not your typical haunted mental asylum of Christmas past. Wouldn't you agree? Number 6. Railroad Yard, Ohio. This railroad yard, I cannot say railroad, I can't say that word. This railroad yard, has always been more of a parking lot for older trains more than anything else. Part of the McDonald Steel Corporation in McDonald, Ohio, this yard has definitely seen better days. The photographer of these images mentioned that since U.S. Steel pulled out of the area in 1981, the locomotives have been in a state of decay, with no one bothering to finish the job of completely disassembling them or to refurbish them. It turns out that those big buildings next to the yard have even more trains waiting to be delivered across the USA. Number 5. Palace Theatre, Wales. I think this might be the first time we have ever ventured into Wales. The Palace Theatre, located in Swansea, was a traditional music hall built in 1888 under the name The Pavilion. The theater has a long and rich history, with the likes of Charlie Chaplin and Dan Leno entertaining patrons in the early years. Later on, Sir Anthony Hopkins starred in Have a Cigarette, his first professional debut. In the 1970s, the Palace Theater became a nightclub, and somehow along the way, the Palace Theater shut down. The now derelict building is a sad reminder of what used to be. There have been talks for restoring this unique building, but nothing concrete has been done yet. Number 4. Dospat Reservoir, Bulgaria. Located high in the Rhodope Mountains of Bulgaria, this reservoir is formed by a dam. The general area is by no means abandoned, since it offers beautiful views and activities like fishing and hunting. But there is this little house in the middle of the man-made lake. Rumor has it, this derelict building has been haunted since the day it was built. Anyone care to shed some more light on the subject? If you know the history behind it, please comment below. Number 3. Jackson Sanatorium, New York. Known as the Castle on the Hill, this sanatorium is located near the small city of Dansville in upstate New York. Surprisingly, it is one of the oldest buildings on our list, built in 1854. The Castle on the Hill served as a healing center and a vacation spot, a place to get away from the hustle and bustle. Since then, the place has been opened and closed many times under different names and different owners. By 1971, the Jackson Sanatorium closed its doors for the final time. Number 2. Bread Factory, Russia. Alright, I will level with you. I don't know much about this factory. Judging by the pictures, it was constructed in 1893. I also know it is located in Novorossiysk, one of the few Russian cities to be honored as a hero city. In antiquity, the city was known as Bata, which was an ancient Greek colony. In the 1700s, it was under Ottoman rule. And since 1829, Novorossiysk has been an important part of Russia. You can imagine that in a city as old as this, there are many random abandoned structures. And as it turns out, there is. From abandoned ships to castles that are falling apart, this city has a lot to offer to any urban explorer. Number 1. Nelson, Nevada. Located about an hour away from Las Vegas, you can find yourself surrounded by old-school cars and abandoned mines. With a massive population of 37 people, you're more likely to encounter a rabbit than a person. I mean, that's not to say that there isn't a lot of traffic passing by in the summer months though, since Nelson is on the way to Lake Mojave. The area was originally named El Dorado by Spaniards who discovered gold there. Throughout the years, Nelson had a reputation of being a lawless free-for-all. So much so that during the Civil War, deserters from both sides traveled there in the hopes that no military authorities would look for them there. It is fair to say that Nelson has a lot of hidden history. You just have to bother to look. The best part about this town is without a doubt the former Texaco gas station. Occupying a few historical buildings, you can find yourself exploring some old-school cars or the nearby abandoned mine. Just make sure you aren't alone. Mines can be a scary thing. Check out the featured comment below, subscribe for more World and Earth, and I'll see you in the next video.